hi, I didn't see you there. It's just me, Paranormal Girl. Nice to see you. Now today, we are going to be reading an excerpt from Coast to Coast Ghosts, True Stories of Hauntings Across America, by Anne Rule and Leslie Rule families. But before we get started, I'm going to have to ask you to subscribe, hit the bell, it'd be swell, slap that like button if you'd like to see more reading from this book, and comment down below more video ideas to keep this going.
It might seem crazy what I'm about to say. Sunshine, she's here.
So, to start us off, I will read from the back. Who can resist a good ghost story? The kind that gives you goosebumps, makes your hair stand on end, and leaves you terrified of the dark. Coast to Coast Ghosts, True Stories of Hauntings Across America, is filled with black and white photographs and real-life spine tinglers that take you on a nationwide journey to places where the dead refuse to rest, from Seattle to San Diego and from New Orleans to Key West. By interviewing credible witnesses, historians, and renowned parapsychologists, as well as researching forgotten library archives, author Leslie Rule has validated sighting after sighting. This is a book that you won't soon forget, no matter how hard you might try. So let us begin. I believe this is a poem by Leslie. I am in the shadow that creeps across your wall, and in the fingers of the wind as it tangles up your hair. I am in the corner of the eye of the stranger lurking by. I am a ghost. I am in the shriek that shatters your sleep, and in the dance of the branches of the dying autumn trees. I am in the silence and in the shouting too. I am ghost. I am in the tears weeping on your window, and reflected in the puddle in a fold between the ripples. I am in the loneliness as she reaches for the phone, and in the empty house that aches for a family who will never return. I am ghost. I am in the echo of hollow laughter gone. I am in the rip in the wallpaper and the old patterns peeking through, and in the yellow newspapers stacked up in the hall. I am ghost. I am the invitation forgotten in the drawer, and in the legs of the spider who lives beside the light. I am in the mists in the rusty ring on the claw-footed tub. I am ghost. Let's skip through that beginning part. Acknowledgements, introduction, haunted homes. Let's just start off here. When I was a little girl, I thought everyone lived in a haunted house. I figured a ghost was a fixture, like the bathtub and the kitchen sink. That's probably a common assumption for any kid growing up in such a place. Des Moines, Washington, a little city on the water about 10 miles south of Seattle, was settled in the late 1800s. My grandfather, the Reverend William John Rule, found a Methodist church there at the turn of the century, and that's where my grandfather, John, and my father, Bill, grew up. When I was 5 years old, my family bought my father's childhood home from his parents. It was a little white house with red shutters that sat on a grassy hill and overlooked the ever-changing waters of Puget Sound. It had begun as beach shack, and over the years, an assortment of odd-shaped rooms were added to it. As a boy, my father had dug out the basement as a bomb shelter. His stern and often cruel father had put him to work at age 8, shoveling out the dirt below the house. He worked every day, and by the time he was 11, little Billy Rule had dug out a 1,000-square-foot area. I'm certain it never crossed his mind that he was creating the space for his future children's bedrooms. Cool in the summer, warm in the winter. The particularly underground basement was always comfortable. But it was creepy. I'm certain it never crossed his mind that he was creating the space. Wow. After my parents bought the house, they worked on it for months. Every weekend we stayed there as they remodeled. Old walls came down and new ones went up as my father changed the configuration of the rooms. My mother papered and painted and laid linoleum While they were there alone, they would often hear the phone ring. It rang, and rang, and rang, and rang, but there was no phone. They would walk to the wall where the old-fashioned telephone had once been mounted. A rectangular indentation with wires poking out was all that remained. Yet as they stood there staring at it, it would continue to ring. Wires don't ring. Who could be calling? My parents were not afraid. They were fascinated. When they finished remodeling, we all moved in, and there I lived until I was on my own at 18. We were used to the sound of our mother typing in the basement. We were used to the sound of our mother typing in the basement rec room, where she had set up a corner office. Click, 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 clickety, click, click, click. But every so often, I would hear typing and open the door to sudden silence and an empty room. One of my siblings once saw a head float past the top bunk bed. The author's home, where a confused spirit wanders, with a lovely little picture of a baby doll. You can't see it once I move it past the light. So we're just... There, you get the idea. And then there is the sobbing ghost. I'm afraid we cannot claim her as our very own, for she made her rounds throughout the entire neighborhood. She was especially attracted to a home on 6th Avenue, one street over. Family heard her nearly every evening as dusk settled. It would begin as a faraway crying that seemed to come in from the field behind their 1920s ranch-style house. But the darker it got, the closer the crying got, until the sound emanated from their cellar. Sometimes it was accompanied by the sound of jars rolling and bones crunching. The Smiths, that really was their name, were renting the house and had never ventured into the cellar. They reasoned that animals must be living in the area and were making the noise. Sandy Smith asked my mom if she could explore with her. She was afraid to go alone. One sunny Saturday, the two women got up their courage and decided to go in. They tried to get Sandy's German Shepherd to escort them, but the dog stood at the threshold with their fur standing on end and refused to go another step farther. We're stopping that there. It was the exact behavior of our German Shepherd, Beowulf, when it came to the room we used as a library. He absolutely would not step into that room. My mom and Sandy went into the Smith cellar, expecting to find an explanation for the odd noises. The area was empty and the floor swept clean. Night after night, the sobbing continued. Who was the ghost? Why was she so sad? I had heard her once, and it was the most heart-wrenching cry I have ever witnessed. Huge, gulping sobs that grew more intense with each cry. I don't have much left in the story. Can you please hold it in? It was the sound of a heart breaking. I was about 12 and in my basement room when I heard her. It seemed to come from the upstairs bathroom. I assumed it was my teenage sister and hurried to find out what could be so terribly wrong. As I ran upstairs, the crying stopped. My sister was not home, my brothers were playing outside, and my mother was in the kitchen, cheerfully making dinner. I cannot say for certain who the phantom weeper was, but there are a couple of possibilities. Like my cat, one source of the haunting was discovered just recently while I was reading a book about the history of Des Moines. I'm not saying that right. Decades before we moved there, someone who lived in a house on the beach died. It was the middle of winter, and the horse-drawn hearse pulled the body up the road. But it was simply too icy for the horse, and its hooves slipped on the hill, so the body was buried on Cliff Avenue, on the exact spot where our mailbox would be. The unmarked grave still remains there today. I don't know the identity of the luckless dead. Could it be a woman who is unhappy with her burial plot? The other possible source of the haunting may be caused by the reckless endeavor of Des Moines workers in 1910. My grandfather, John Rule, was 10 years old that year. City workers dug out the hillside about 60 feet below, both cats are now interested, below the site of our future home. They were putting in the road that would eventually become Cliff Avenue. As John and a group of boys watched, the workers shovel truck struck a grisly treasure, a Native American burial site. Skeletons had been buried in a special coffin, a canoe, along with beaded necklaces and bracelets. The boys desecrated the sacred burial ground. Whooping with excitement, they raided the grave, looting it for the jewelry grieving loved ones had once placed there. One of the boys grabbed a skull and jammed it onto a fence post. People were shocked by the sight of the grimy, empty-eyed skull staring at who walked by. The desecration of the grave created an uproar in Des Moines, but nothing that would match the controversy if it were to happen in today's politically correct times. The road went in, and people went about their business. Desecrated graves are often traced as the source of a haunting. Did the horribly insensitive acts of city workers and a gang of boys prompt the phantom weeping? No one can say what tongue the sobbing woman spoke, for all we ever heard were cries. The sound of a heart breaking is the same in any language. About 20 years after the looting of the grave, my childhood home was built atop the sacred burial site. No one knows how many Native Americans rest in the ground here. Our house was eventually sold to the city and torn down to make room for Overlook Park. All that remains is a sweeping water view and the lilac bush my mother planted on the bank. Sometimes when I walk by and see the people sitting in benches there, I smile. I smile because they do not know. They do not know that they are lounging within the invisible walls of our old library, the room our dog refused to enter. And they do not know that they are marking themselves uncomfortably atop a Native American burial ground. I wonder, do they ever hear the sobbing? Though I soon learned that not everybody lives in a haunted home, I have encountered many who do, including the following people who have agreed to share their experiences. I'll open the door. Give me a second to wrap up the video. Thank you. So I'm only reading one story today because they're decently long. I don't know actually how long the next one is. I hear you. Wait a second. How long is the next one? Because it's not that long. Oh, this one. So if you slap that like button and stuff like that, I will continue reading this, and it's cool stories. I'm not the greatest storyteller ever, but there's some interesting sounding stories. Oh, kitty. Looked at a random page. But if you like this video, slap that like button, subscribe, hit the bell, it'd be swell. Comment down below more video ideas. And like I said before, slap that like button if you want to see more content like this. If you want to have me continue reading the book and maybe I'll look through it. Because I'm not going to read every story of this unless it gets to that point. But I'm probably going to slowly mark all the stories I have read. And just kind of read other ones. I just saw something about the Biltmore. Anywho, I'll see you in the next one. I'm going to let my cats out of my room. Goodbye! And I'd like to tell you guys right now right now is when end cards should be showing and stuff like that. Now is when I need to tell you that you really do need to subscribe because according to my analytics, yes, I'm like that. Over 50% of you are not subscribed. I look at stuff and it's like, oh, I have all of these views in all over the course of all my videos on special day, and a lot of you aren't subscribed, and I'm wondering why. Come on, guys. Subscribe. It's easy. It's painless. I am sorry I grieve you so. And also, if you know why my outdoor Halloween decoration video is so popular, comment down below because I've been looking at analytics and it's just getting random views. Goodbye.